Hello everybody, I'm Ocean Robbins. So excited that in about 15 minutes now, we're going to begin episode 2 of the Food Revolution Summit docu-series. Today our topic is boosting brain health, the science of sharpening your mind and protecting your memory. We're going to look at how to future-proof your brain. You'll discover how cutting-edge science is showing us that what we eat, how we sleep, and even how we move can dramatically impact memory, clarity, and long-term cognitive health. We'll explore a remarkable study that improved brain function for 71% of early-stage Alzheimer's patients without drugs or surgery. You'll learn what the gut-brain connection really means and why it matters to you. You'll find out about the nutrients that are essential for mental sharpness and even the simple daily habit that could slash dementia risk by 40%. This is about empowering you with the tools to protect your brain and unlock its full potential for today and for years to come. Yesterday, we started the summit with episode 1, Embracing Vitality at Every Stage. And we've received thousands of enthusiastic emails and comments. Mary said, watching from Tennessee, I've watched several years of this summit, but have struggled with implementing it all the way. The story of the lady with prediabetes who moved to Kentucky touched me as I'm facing similar challenges. Hoping that one of the videos will address stress more fully, as that's one of my larger challenges. Thank you, Ocean and Food Revolution Summit. Well, Mary, thank you for joining us from Tennessee and for being a part of this journey. And thanks for sharing so vulnerably about the struggle it can take sometimes to move from knowing what to do to doing what we know. That is so critically important. And I really hope that this summit will inspire, yes, and will also help empower for action. You know, hope opens the door. And then action is walking through that door. You don't get action without hope, without knowing something better is possible, right? And really believing it. But then you've also got to move that forward to get the real results. So I'm glad you're here, and maybe this will be the moment when you really move towards that full implementation, because you're worth it. Your health is worth it, your family is worth it, your life is worth it. So bless you on that journey. And we do have some resources in Food Revolution Network that might help. Of course, there's the empowerment package from this summit, which gives you ongoing access to all of the episodes and the expert interviews, which is a great way to keep you getting re-inspired and also to share it with friends and loved ones. But we also have a Whole Life Club, which is our ongoing membership community. And that's really where we help folks, there's about 10,000 people in it right now, help folks to implement, sustain, and optimize healthy eating lifestyles and all the aspects of lifestyle medicine for their whole lives. And so that may be a resource you want to consider. If you get an empowerment package, you get an opportunity right after purchase to join in with a 30-day free trial membership. But even without that, we'll let you know about other opportunities to join in Whole Life Club, and it could be a great resource for you, Mary, if you're not already a part of it. And we're just sending you lots and lots of love on your journey. Maya said, bless you, Ocean, for continuing the work your dad started and that you and he did together up to his passing. My heart goes out to you, and my prayers are with you. Keep up the good work and maintain the amazing legacy. Thank you, Maya. We are so grateful that you're part of this legacy too, and that we all get to carry on together in building healthier lives and hopefully also a healthier world. Francis said, thank you for the education provided yesterday, on longevity. I see that exercise is emphasized clearly. However, I am, or I decided to be, unable to exercise. I'm involved in intensive physical work I do 4 to 8 hours a day. I consider that enough exercise, but my wife does not agree. I am 69. Any guidance? Well, hi, Francis. Thank you for your kind words and for tuning in to yesterday's session on longevity. I'm so glad you're with us, and I appreciate your thoughtful question. It sounds like you're doing several hours of physically demanding work almost every day, and at 69, that is impressive. It absolutely makes sense that you would consider that a form of exercise, and it is. In fact, many forms of manual labor provide cardiovascular benefits and help to maintain strength and keep the body in motion, all of which are pillars for a long and healthy life. Now, your wife might be thinking more about specific kinds of movement that have been studied for things like balance or flexibility or joint health or posture as we age. Things like walking, yoga, stretching, or resistance training. These can be wonderful additions even if your work is already physically active, but that doesn't mean that the work you're doing isn't valuable for your health too. If you're lifting or bending or carrying or on your feet for hours a day, that's already helping to preserve muscle and bone strength. The key here is you want to make sure you're also supporting your recovery with good sleep, hydration, and nutrient-rich food, especially plant-based sources of anti-inflammatory compounds and antioxidants and minerals that support your joints and your connective tissue. So yes, I'm going to say it on the record, what you're doing does count. And if you can incorporate some gentle mobility or balance work or flexibility work in your off hours, even just a few minutes a day, that might be a great complement to the activity that you're already getting. Thank you again for reaching out and for being an inspiring example of being active through the decades. Joe said, the first time I watched this docu-series started me on my whole foods plant-based journey. I can still improve. I'm still eating too much processed food, but I'm working on it. In general, I have had so much more energy since I started this journey. Awesome, Joe. Thank you. And I want to just name that there's something I think of as kind of a virtuous cycle, a positive feedback loop, if you will, that can set in. When you make healthy choices, it tends to help you feel better, feel more alive, have more energy. And then one of the things you can do with that is to make healthier choices. And we create momentum in positive directions. So you don't have to go all the way all at once and implement every positive lifestyle habit tomorrow. It often is more effective to layer things in one at a time and let them become competencies, and then you grow from there. I remember when I was first learning to play the silver flute and my teacher made me do scales for hours a day. And I was like, I didn't love scales. I wanted to play something that sounded beautiful, but he said, this is how you get good. So I practiced my scales. And eventually I could play melodies, and I probably wouldn't have gotten to the melodies without the scales. So sometimes you kind of got to put in the work and take the steps. And then over time, you get better at it. And it sounds better. And it feels better. And that's how healthy eating tends to work. Deborah said, I'm a little over 6 months into my first year of having my eyes and understanding open to plant-based, organic, whole food eating through FRN and Dr. Furman's contributions. And I'm more encouraged and strengthened to continue in joining this summit. I'm gradually losing weight and hopeful to keep reducing the amount of joint pain and arthritic inflammation. I'm 2.5 weeks away from stepping into age 75 with many reasons to be thankful and joyful for the years ahead. Volunteering at my church and more opportunities to travel to the East Coast at least once a year to spend time with my beloved family and grandchildren. These are some of the reasons that motivate me to keep working to reverse physical conditions and transition to a healthier and happier lifestyle. Thank you very much for your work, your heart, your life, and mission. You know, folks, I just want to say to Deborah, thank you so much for sharing. We're so glad you're here. And Deborah is telling us about the why that motivates her. And this is really powerful. Dr. Scott Stoll refers to it as the why that makes you cry. What is it that really, really motivates you? What's on the line here for you? Is it being able to volunteer in your church or visit your grandkids and your beloved family? Is it wanting to be able to do work that you love or to share time with loved ones without being in pain? Is it because you have some gift to give to the world and you want to have the energy and the mental clarity to do that? Whatever it is, or maybe you just want to get out of pain, whatever it is that motivates you, I want you to know that the time to start shaping your destiny is now. You know, Christy Funk talked about this in yesterday's episode, that a lot of us think about what we want when we get old, and we don't realize that we're shaping our destiny every single day. We're charting that course. So what kind of a course are you going to chart? And don't be one of those people who looks back and utters those pathetic words, too late, at the end of your life. Let yourself be somebody who seizes the moment and takes advantage of it the way that Deborah is doing now, so that you can truly create the life that you love and that you deserve. Katie said, thank you so much, Ocean. What a blessing this revolution is. I'm hoping to adopt these changes for myself and my family. Starting and continuing is clearly so important. My mom and stepfather have been pushing this for years. Getting on board right now. Oh, Katie, you are so blessed to have a mom and a stepfather that have been nudging you along. So congratulations on that. And hooray that you are here joining in this journey. Bless you. And thank you for being a part of this with us. Folks, if you just joined us, we'll be starting episode 2, focusing on brain health at the top of the hour in about 5 minutes. And I'm Ocean Robbins, sharing some welcoming words in day 2 of the Food Revolution Summit docu-series. Naomi said, I love the idea of whole food and already working on converting my home and meals to being whole food plant-based. My biggest challenge is kids' lunches. I believe fed is best, and there are so few things that they will eat if not freshly prepared and eaten together as a family. At school, they are surrounded by kids eating all sorts of junk. So I'm feeling guilty right now as I put Doritos and Nutella sandwiches in their lunches today. Hi, Naomi. I feel you. I'm a dad. I know what that's like. First off, please take a deep breath and release any guilt. You clearly love your kids, and you're doing your best in a world that does not make it easy to feed them well. Doritos and Nutella sandwiches don't define you as a mother. They don't define your parenting. Your awareness, your care, and your intention do. It's so true that school lunches can be especially hard. You're not the one packing junk food in the lunch boxes that surround your kids, but you are the one trying to figure out how to raise them with real nourishment in a world that often pulls the other way. And that takes courage and creativity, and sometimes a little patience. Yes, fed is best. Full stop. You're already doing something right. Now, maybe as you keep making progress with whole foods at home, you'll discover a few bridge foods or go-to swaps that your kids will accept in their lunches too. Maybe sometimes things like whole grain wraps or homemade trail mix, roasted chickpeas with some nice seasonings, fresh fruit kebabs, or fun little bento box style snacks that feel playful. Maybe some hummus and veggies. But even more than the food itself, your presence and your consistency will show them what love and nourishment look like. And this is a journey, and you are not alone. You're showing up with heart, and that is something to be proud of. So thank you for being here, and hopefully you'll keep learning. And remember, you're not just learning for you. You're learning for your whole family. And everybody watching, remember this. As you go through this journey, think about who could benefit in your life from what you are learning here in this summit. And how can you spread this? Because we're not just isolated here. Food is super social. Everybody, as you listen to today's presentations, which will start in just a couple minutes with episode 2, I want to invite you to think also about who you may want to share this summit with. There's still time for them to join in. Just send them to foodrevolutionsummit.org, and they can be a part of this journey with us. We'll be starting episode 2 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries in just a couple of minutes now. You know, Alzheimer's rates have been rising for decades, and rates of mental illness have also risen sharply in recent years. More and more people have been feeling unsatisfied with their lives, frustrated with the status quo, and many of us feel increasing levels of anxiety about the state of the world around us. With all that's going on right now, it is more important than ever to give your body and your brain and your nervous system and your emotional well-being every possible advantage. And as you're going to learn today, your diet and your lifestyle choices can make a world of difference. They can increase your ability to respond creatively and effectively to whatever inevitable challenges life is going to bring you. And they can help you preserve your memory for the long term. Thousands of people have already gathered for today's episode. And as we go through the day, I want to invite you to go ahead and post an introduction of yourself in the comments thread on the broadcast page and share as we go through the episode your top takeaways, your aha moments, your breakthroughs, and what this all means in your life. And if you have questions, please post them as well, because after this episode, I'm going to come on live with you again, and we'll get a chance to answer some of those questions. And I'll also be giving away some prizes, including a copy of Real Superfoods, the brilliant cookbook that Nicole and I created together, and maybe an empowerment package. All right, folks, we're ready now for episode 2 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries on brain health. Here we go.
The food revolution is ultra important.
The food revolution is an opportunity to change your life for the better.
What if food could be your medicine?
Learn how to eat to live a longer life.
If you want longevity, then focus on life-giving nutrition.
The food revolution is happiness.
The food revolution is vital for human health and the planet.
What if food could change everything?
What if food could reduce your risk of cancer?
What if your food choices could shape the future?
Now is the time for change.
Say yes to the change you want to see.
Now is the time to take charge of your life.
Let's do this. Let's do this.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now, baby.
Your brain is amazing. From the moment you were born, it's been learning, growing, and changing. It helps you make decisions, solve problems, and reach your goals. But today, for billions of brains, something has gone wrong. Anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues are rising fast. Millions of people are struggling with brain fog, and many are heading toward dementia.
Here's a fact that surprises a lot of people. 2 out of 3 people with Alzheimer's are women. And for women in their 60s, the chance of developing Alzheimer's is twice as high as getting breast cancer. Alzheimer's doesn't just hurt the person with the disease, it also affects their families, their friends, caregivers in deep and painful ways.
But there's hope. Research involving millions of people shows that the main causes of Alzheimer's are things we can control. This means you've got the power to protect your brain and keep it strong so you can not just prevent dementia, you can also enjoy a clearer mind and a happier life. And that's what today's episode is all about. I'm Ocean Robbins.
And I'm Nicole D'Andrea Russert.
And you're watching the 2025 Food Revolution Summit.
When you lose your memories, you lose everything. And so it's really the most devastating diagnosis. And people tend to spiral downward. And it's a fundamentally isolating experience anyway. You're like, wait, where did I put my keys? And where did I leave my wallet and my glasses? And you don't want to go out because you don't want to embarrass yourself. And next thing you know, you have this diagnosis. And then they tell you, don't leave them alone, or don't let them wander off, or take away their car keys. Suddenly your world keeps getting smaller and smaller. It's just devastating.
After seeing my amazing grandfather go through this whole journey of dementia, the wonderful person that he was, the wonderful things that he did for the world, and to have had the privilege of living with him in the same house and seeing how dementia slowly and gradually took parts of him away from us was transformative at a cellular level, where it was quite frightening as a child to see a person going from changing the world and being a hero to us all, to not remembering our names, to not remembering how to button up his shirt or eat his food. What really happens in the brain when somebody goes through that journey?
So dementia is a syndrome. It's a broad term that really refers to the cognitive deficits, a set of cognitive deficits. Dementia, since it's a syndrome, it can be caused by any number of different diseases. Alzheimer's disease is a type of disease that causes dementia. Sometimes we use the term dementia and Alzheimer's disease almost synonymously, but they aren't. They're not synonyms of one another. There are other diseases, like Parkinson's disease, actually, that can cause dementia. Dementia is kind of an umbrella term that refers to the cognitive problems that emerge. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of disease that causes dementia.
It can be hard to tell what's dementia and what's so-called normal aging, because memory loss and dementia are both so tragically normal. In fact, more than half of all Americans over the age of 85 have Alzheimer's disease.
And with every memory loss and every Alzheimer's diagnosis made, families and communities are impacted too. The emotional toll is profound. Loved ones watch someone they care about slowly lose memories, independence, and connections. And faced with the burden of care, they often make immense personal sacrifices, sometimes even putting their own lives and well-being on hold. In the US alone, more than 11 million family members, friends, and neighbors provide unpaid care for loved ones with dementia, shouldering both emotional and financial burdens.
And of course, the economic realities are real. Alzheimer's is one of the most expensive diseases for families and for society. The financial strain of medical bills and long-term care can be overwhelming. In fact, unpaid caregivers provided nearly $350 billion worth of care in 2023 in the US alone. For many, this leads to financial hardship, with caregivers sacrificing income, retirement savings, and job stability to meet the relentless demands of a devastating disease.
If everything continues to keep going the way it's going, without much prospects of reversal, effective treatment, or prevention, we will, by 2050, be reaching approximately $1 trillion annually in caring for and treating for Alzheimer's disease. What this means is that Alzheimer's disease by itself might be able to bankrupt our healthcare system. So it's really imperative that we find solutions to Alzheimer's disease, dementia more broadly, for not only the people that suffer from those diseases, but also for the caregivers and the healthcare providers that are providing that support for those people.
We look at an ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure as it relates to Alzheimer's. Even a pound isn't going to cut it. You can get all the pounds you want. There is no cure. We all can probably name a couple of cancer survivors. Name one Alzheimer's survivor. I would challenge anybody to come up with a name. So, the issue is then that when you talk about cost of these measures, it's negative. Why? Because in addition to preserving and protecting the brain, the lifestyle choices that we would engage to be healthy for the brain or salubrious are the same ones that we would choose for a healthy heart, healthy immune system, cancer prevention, and really across the board of those diseases that are most threatening to our lives, which are the chronic degenerative conditions according to the World Health Organization. Not COVID, not war, not trauma, not any other infectious disease. Globally, it is the chronic infectious disease that ranks as number one in terms of a category that kills people on this planet. So therefore, it's a huge cost-saving approach because people are not going to be at higher risk for those other conditions as well. The metabolic issues, the diabetes, the hypertension, the overweight, the dyslipidemias are all going to be much reduced when people engage better diet.
The costs of Alzheimer's are rising fast, and they're already a leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Almost no family can really afford it, and it turns out that this disease impacts low-income communities the most.
Exactly, Ocean. And this leads us to something else we need to explore. How do social and environmental factors intertwine with biological ones to shape risk?
And more importantly, what can we do to change that story? Let's look into the intersection of health disparities, risk factors, and prevention. And then we'll explore strategies that can make a difference for everyone. Because as you will see, no matter what your background is or what you've been through, we can all take real and meaningful action.
People that identify as Black or African American have higher rates of type 2 diabetes. They have higher rates of cardiovascular conditions. And so we know all of this, but this, I think, also translates to higher rates of Alzheimer's disease, dementia more generally, and earlier decline in cognitive performance, cognitive function. So we see this earlier in the lifespan than what we do in individuals that identify as white. So this is a major problem, and in my opinion, this is something as a culture, as a society, we should be finding extremely embarrassing that such health disparities exist. And I tend to think about some of these racial and ethnic disparities, not necessarily in terms of the ethnic and racial components, but as the socio-demographic and health factors, social demographics that contribute to the conditions that elevate risk for Alzheimer's disease. The fact that there might be higher levels of stress, reduced access to facilities, socioeconomic conditions, educational differences, discrimination, and systemic racism. All of these things are contributing to behaviors and factors that then increase risk for Alzheimer's disease. There's also, obviously, increased rates of cardiovascular and cardiometabolic conditions. So individuals that identify as Black or African American often have higher rates of hypertension, higher rates of obesity, higher rates of type 2 diabetes. All of these are risk factors for increased Alzheimer's disease risk.
When we look at the drivers of Alzheimer's disease, it's driven by a number of things. It can be driven by obesity. It can be driven by diabetes. It can be driven by cardiovascular disease. If you have a population that has a higher risk of these things, for whatever reason, they in turn will increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Now, somebody might say, well, the problems are genetic and you can encourage people to change their diets all you want to, but nothing's going to work, or there's a racial difference. We have done studies where we have brought in people, large group of white people, large group of Black research participants. And what we discover is that if we suggest a plant-based diet, low-fat, healthy vegan diet, and we give people moderate support in doing it and answer questions, you see absolutely zero difference in their ability to comply with the diet, adhere with the diet, the amount of weight they lose, the improvements they have in blood sugar, the improvements they have in lipids, exactly the same. I mean, you're just wiping out any kind of disparity with this.
It's remarkable how lifestyle changes can level the playing field, reducing risk factors across diverse populations. It turns out, regardless of the color of your skin, how much money you've got in the bank, or even the traumas you may have endured, it's always helpful to give your body the best possible fuel.
Yes, and we're going to focus most of this episode on exactly that. But first, let's look at what conventional medicine has to offer. Given how significant a problem Alzheimer's is, are there any medications or treatments that can help or even provide a solution?
We don't have any meaningful drugs to treat our most aggressive brain disorders like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. We don't have drugs that can alter the time course of these diseases in any meaningful way. Yes, we have drugs to treat symptoms. Certainly, the drugs that we use in Parkinson's to treat tremor and rigidity are effective, but at the same time, there's an inexorable progression downhill in that clinical entity, as well as certainly in Alzheimer's disease. There have been developed over the past couple of years, been under study for many years, research revealing that the drugs that are targeting a protein called beta amyloid may have some efficacy, and they've been deeply investigated. And a couple of them have been released and approved by the FDA that target, again, that are amyloid based, with the assumption that the cause of Alzheimer's is the accumulation and the detrimental effects within the brain of this protein, because there is a very interesting correlation between the amount of amyloid visualized in the brain on specific types of brain scans, or markers of amyloid in the spinal fluid, for example, and now even blood testing. There's a bit of a correlation between that and Alzheimer's risk and progression of Alzheimer's. But it turns out that these drugs are by and large ineffective. One drug called Leqembi, or lecanemab, was published in the New England Journal of Medicine and really only was able to slow the inexorable decline of Alzheimer's clinically in an 18-month period by about 3 months. And that is in the face of dramatic risk, including brain shrinkage across the board in all patients who were given the drug versus placebo, as well as a 22 to 28% increased risk of something called ARIA, amyloid related imaging abnormalities. In other words, small hemorrhages in the brain, that's not a good thing.
Billions and billions of dollars have been spent in the last 20 years to try to develop a drug to treat Alzheimer's, but only 3 have gotten FDA approval. And all 3 simply slow down the rate at which you get worse. But getting worse more, and not even by that much, but getting worse more slowly is still getting worse. And so the suicide rate in the first month after people have been diagnosed is 7 times higher because it takes all their hope away. They say, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones or Ms. Smith, you've got Alzheimer's. If there's anything you want to do it soon because you don't have much time left. Get your affairs in order. It's only going to get worse over time. At best, we can slow it down a little bit. And all 3 drugs are very expensive. The first drug, aducanumab, was $56,000. The second one, lecanemab, is about $26,000. The third one, donanemab, is $30,000 a person per year. And they all have 20% of people have what's called ARIA, which is an acronym for side effects like bleeding into your brain or brain swelling or things like that, because you're pulling, in a sense, amyloid out of your brain. And amyloid is the protein that kind of gunks up and short circuits your brain. It's an inflammatory response.
It's sobering to hear about the limitations of current drugs and immense costs, financially and emotionally, of relying on treatments that offer so little for such a devastating disease. But could diet and lifestyle make a difference?
Dr. Dean Ornish has led groundbreaking work demonstrating that a comprehensive lifestyle medicine approach can be more effective than drugs or surgery for not only preventing but also reversing cardiovascular disease, prostate cancer, and a number of other conditions. In fact, the Ornish program was the first lifestyle treatment program ever to be approved for coverage by Medicare and the major U.S. insurance companies.
So Dr. Ornish decided to see if maybe by any chance his program might also be effective with early stage Alzheimer's, or what's often called mild cognitive impairment.
For the last 48 years, I've been directing clinical trials showing what a powerful difference these simple lifestyle changes can make. What we eat, in this case, a whole foods plant-based diet, low in fat and sugar, moderate exercise, both aerobic and strength training, meditation and other yoga-based stress management techniques, and support groups, love and bringing people together, not just to help support the other aspects of the program, but as a powerful intervention in its own right, or to reduce it to its essence, to eat well, move more, stress less, and love more. And I think our unique contribution has been to use these very high-tech, expensive, state-of-the-art scientific measures to prove how powerful these very simple and low-tech and low-cost interventions can be. And the more diseases we study, the more evidence we have to show how powerful these approaches can be. I decided to find out. So I figure whatever we show, if we show that these same intensive lifestyle changes can improve cognition and function, in a sense reverse the progression of early stage Alzheimer's, that'll be amazing. If we show that it does nothing, then that'll be an important finding. People need to know not to fool themselves. But so I figured whatever we showed, it wasn't to prove we could reverse it, it was to find out what happened, which is what we do for all of our studies. And so what we found is that after just 20 weeks in a classical randomized controlled trial, half of the people who had early Alzheimer's disease were randomly assigned into 2 groups. One got the intensive lifestyle intervention. The other group was told, just do whatever you've been doing. And then we used the standard 4 measures of cognition that are used in all the FDA drug trials. What we found in our study was that overall, in 3 of the 4 measures of cognition, there were statistically significant differences between the groups after just 20 weeks. And the 4th was of borderline significance. And if we took out one statistical outlier, all 4 measures were significant. And 3 of the 4 measures showed improvement in cognition overall. Not every patient got better, but overall there was improvement. And one of the 4 tests to me is the most clinically meaningful, called the Clinical Global Impression of Change, because they not only interview the patient, but also the spouse or partner. So you can really get their perspective as well. And what we found is that 71% of the people stopped or reversed the progression of their Alzheimer's disease. Whereas in the randomized control group, none of them got better and 68% got worse. And so these differences were highly statistically significant.
I got to say, the page completely turned. 2024, Dr. Dean Ornish, who I got to say has never been afraid to take on a big challenge. He showed that heart disease could be reversed. Prostate cancer, you could change the course of it. So he brought in people. He changed their diet and lifestyle in a variety of ways. And he was extremely supportive of them. But these are people who were not healthy people, and he was trying to stave off dementia. These are people who had the beginnings of dementia already. They were having trouble in some cases. They said, I don't dare drive anymore, or their family members would take away the keys. Diet, exercise, fair amount of support of people getting together. I mean, it's no big thing. It's not psychotherapy. It's just getting people together as a group. Some nutritional supplements thrown in too. And what he found was in a control group that didn't make these changes, people did what people do, is they get worse. 60 to 70% of the people were continuing to decline. Okay, the intervention group, 70% of them are getting better or holding steady. So the first thing is you could start to actually see in at least a big subset of these people improvements, kind of going back to their old self. If you dissect these findings a little bit, and I've talked with Dean about this, 40% of the people were actually getting better. 30% were staying the same, and 30% were getting worse in the intervention group. And so the question is why? And the answer is so important. The people who got better were the people who really did it. The people who said, diet changes, plant-based diet, I'll do it. And the people who got worse were the people who said, well, I'll do it next week, or I'll do it a couple of days a week, or it's my birthday, so I'm not going to follow the diet. And the point is, if you don't take the drug, if it's like an antibiotic, your infection won't go away. If you don't do the diet changes, you're not going to get better. The drug is a healthy diet and lifestyle. And I think it's such an important lesson because we work with a lot of people in research studies. We work with them in our clinic. And if sometimes the person will say to me, well, if I do it part way, will that help? Okay, you come to me, you got pneumonia, and I'm going to say, here's an antibiotic, take it 3 times a day. And you say, well, what if I take it every other day? Or if I take it maybe just once a day instead of 3 times? What's going to happen is your pneumonia is going to kill you. So if a healthy diet works, let's prescribe what we know works.
It's hard to change, to reverse a chronic disease. And the reason we were the first to show it in all these different conditions is that most people didn't go far enough. But now we're finding we can give people hope in an area that matters most that nothing else works in. And if it works this well for people who already have early Alzheimer's, it probably works even better to help prevent it. And there are these new artificial intelligence enhanced technologies for being able to diagnose Alzheimer's up to 10 years before it becomes clinically apparent. But a lot of people say, why would I want to know if I'm likely to get this horrible disease if I can't do anything about it? It'll just make me crazy. But now it looks like maybe you can. And you probably don't have to make such big changes to prevent it as you do to reverse it. And clearly, the earlier you intervene, the more likely it's to be effective.
Well, the doctor gave the statement that that I had Alzheimer's, and kind of more of a negative approach to it, I think. He wasn't positive at all in terms of what I could see, or do in the future.
It was very difficult. I mean, it's a horrible diagnosis to receive for anyone, because as of today, there's no cure. There's nothing really that anybody could do to help you. And I remember clearly the neurologist saying, if there's anything you'd like to do it in the next couple of years. And get your life in order, get your finances in order, make plans, because you've only got a couple of good years left. So it's devastating. So being part of this study has changed that for us totally. It has given hope.
You mentioned before that you were doing a lot of CFO kind of work, chief financial officer work, and you weren't able to do that, and you weren't able to do your household finances either, I presume. Is that right?
Correct.
But now, tell me what's changed in that regard.
I'm back to reconciling our finances on a monthly basis. I keep up to date with our the investments and any changes that need to take place with that.
Is that a change from a year ago, where you can do things now that you couldn't do a year ago?
Yes. Well, it's kind of like doing a happy dance. Because it's so much a part of my life And, who I am and was, it's kind of hard, saying that part of me was just gone. And so it's a lot of self-worth that comes back.
I'd say several years ago, Mike quit reading. It just wasn't worth it to him. He would forget what he read. He'd have to start over. So just in the last, I would say, about 4 months, he's reading again.
Before, it would take me weeks to finish a book. And now I'm able to pick up a book and to read and to remember what I've read and be able to finish that book within 3 to 4 days.
Being a part of this study, it's cutting edge, even though it's simple. I mean, it's a plant-based diet, lifestyle adjustments with exercise and stress management, and being part of group support. It's very simple, and so it's doable for anyone, which makes it even more exciting. To think that could change your brain is an exciting thing to be a part of. And it really brings me a lot of joy just to know that this is a cutting-edge experience, and hopefully it's going to make a huge difference for millions of people around the world. It's kind of mind-boggling, really, to think that what we're doing here in the San Francisco Bay Area is possibly going to change the way the world looks at Alzheimer's disease. That's pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah. It's hard to overstate the potential significance of this study. We'd previously seen that diet and lifestyle impacted cardiovascular health, diabetes risk, and even the odds of developing dementia. But here we have the first case control ever conducted, demonstrating that at least for some people who already had mild cognitive impairment or early stage Alzheimer's, there was an actual reversal of symptoms. Some of them were literally able to regain functions they had thought were lost forever, like Tammy.
So we've got several small businesses, property management, and I used to do all the books for that, and then obviously didn't. And then this year, I said, would you like some help? And he says, yeah, here's this stack of stuff that we need to go through. So I organized it all, put it all into piles with pieces of paper on headers so I could hand it to him. But then I took it a step farther, and unbeknownst to him, I created spreadsheets. They're all color coordinated. It has a face sheet on it that says, this is what we earned, this is what we spent, here's our net, this is our whatever's all written out. And said, here you go, it's all done.
It was astonishing.
Why?
Well, for one, I didn't have that expectation. I had the expectation of, just go assemble these in some sort of an order so then I can go back and take care of it. But when she came back to me, they were not only all categorized in a proper order, or beneficial order, more importantly, they were all done correctly. Yeah. And for me and for Tammy, it was like absolute jubilation. It was exciting. Do you realize what you just accomplished was such a remarkable...
down to using the calculator, which I hadn't. And he says, well, I'm going to check your math even with the calculator. I said, calculator's not going to lie, but go ahead. And his numbers matched mine. Well, I was like, yay.
No, my numbers matched yours.
That's true. That's true.
Now, was that something that you couldn't have done a year ago?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think it's been 4 or 5 years probably that I've really gotten involved to that degree.
What might have happened?
Well, I would, one, get really frustrated with myself, and then I'd get the paperwork all mixed up, and I'd put them in the wrong pile, or I wouldn't add it up properly, and it became so confusing. I just hand him this jumble of papers, essentially, and say, I did the best I could, good luck.
So how does it feel to be able to do things that you didn't think you'd be able to do before? How does that make you feel about yourself?
I think a deep sense of identity is returning. It's given me like a new lease on life, and yet it's a familiarity and something that I always prided myself in. And so it's like, yes, I'm coming back. Feeling really good.
You're coming back like
I was prior to. the disease being diagnosed.
Yeah, one of the other study participants said, I feel like I'm me again. Does that sound familiar?
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, an older but better version of me. Yeah. I really feel that way.
Whatever the Alzheimer's process is, there's something in Dr. Ornish's program with healthy foods and physical activity and counseling seems to be able to reverse. Now, these are people with mild cognitive impairment, and it's not someone with far advanced Alzheimer's who, is basically non-functional. But those early stages where the memory is going, it seems to be quite amenable to diet and lifestyle changes. Bless him for doing this work. How brave of him, and he's been to the front lines. And now he's reporting back. This too is reversible with a healthy plant-based diet, and it gives us all hope.
For me, of all the work we've done, it's really the most meaningful because at least with all these other conditions, there were at least some drugs or surgical interventions or stents or bypasses or whatever that had some benefit, but nothing really works that well for Alzheimer's. And so now we can really give many people new hope and new choices in the area that matters most that nothing else seems to work very well in.
The study that Dr. Ornish and his team led was fairly small, and the subjects were people who had very early stage Alzheimer's or mild cognitive impairment. But they were all facing serious and life-changing symptoms. Many of them had their lives profoundly changed. We don't know what will happen to them in the years ahead, and as researchers are very fond of saying, more research is needed. But just the fact that it's possible to experience a reversal of symptoms for some people is profoundly hopeful.
It really is, Ocean. We have so much more to learn. And it seems that when we put our attention more on what we eat and how we live, it can be a lot more generative than spending tens of billions of dollars researching drugs. And of course, if ever some miracle drug is developed that actually works to cure Alzheimer's, we'll all be thrilled.
Yeah.
But at the moment, there isn't one. And all of us are eating every single day.
We really are. And when we eat, we aren't just feeding ourselves, we're also feeding our microbiome. And this brings us to another compelling piece of the puzzle that has researchers fascinated. Scientists call it the gut-brain axis.
So over the years, we've seen more and more research papers coming out on what we call the gut-brain axis, or the gut microbiome brain axis. And it's absolutely fascinating. The connections between our gut and our brain are multidimensional and bidirectional. So what's that mean? There's lots of different ways that our gut and our brain connect to each other, directly through nerves, biologically active substances, including neurotransmitters, which are produced by the bacteria that live in our bowel, through hormones and other signaling mechanisms that come from our gut, enter our bloodstream, and then have a direct effect on our brain.
Let's just talk about this relationship of the gut and the brain. Beyond the idea that the foods we consume contain things that are important for the brain, like various chemicals in our foods, various vitamins, minerals, various plant products, etc., that directly, when they are absorbed, affect the brain. But I'd like to focus for a moment more on how do our food choices affect the health of the gut, and why would we care? The reason we care gets back to this fundamental mechanism of inflammation that relates to neurodegenerative issues, that relates to mental health issues. Recognizing that one of the fundamental roles of our gut bacteria is the maintenance of the integrity of the gut lining. When we threaten those gut bacteria, they can't do their job. The integrity of the gut lining is then challenged. When the gut lining is challenged and becomes a bit permeable, then we have a situation in which various types of components within the gut make their way across the gut lining. And guess what? Who's going to see that first? The immune system. 70% of the immune cells in your body exist clustered around the gut. We call this the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or the GALT. And they are there, these cells are there to see what you've been eating and to respond to the various chemicals that come across the gut lining. In a normal situation, they're not very challenged because not very much is getting through aside from our nutrients and, of course, water. But when things are coming across the gut lining, like bacteria or bacterial breakdown products or other components that shouldn't make their way through, then the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or the immune system around the gut, begins to change. And it changes in such a way that it begins signaling the rest of the body that we've been basically invaded, and that ultimately translates to the production of, you guessed it, inflammatory chemicals. So this then ties together what goes on in the brain, because these inflammatory mediators make their way to the brain and are very disruptive. This then connects for us the multiple dots of the foods that we choose to eat to the presence or absence of brain inflammation and the risk or risk reduction for neurodegenerative diseases. When you contextualize food in that way, then you really begin to value your choices, don't you?
And all of it is determined mostly by the kind of foods that we eat. So if we can control that, if we can control the kind of foods that we eat to support our gut microbiome, that significantly impacts our brain health as well.
You know, we used to think that eating fiber-rich foods was only important for, like, you know, regularity or something. But now we realize that, in fact, fiber was like, by definition, kind of an inert substance. It's like non-digestible, right? And so it just makes it all the way down to the colon where it just kind of bulks up things. But now we realize, oh, wait a second. Fiber is the primary prebiotic for our good gut bugs, right? The fiber feeders are the good bugs in our colon, and that's what they eat. And so if we starve our microbial self, we can run into problems, what's called dysbiosis, which is an unhealthy balance of bacteria in our gut, which we can cure by just eating enough prebiotics, which is fiber-resistant starch, found only one place by definition, and that's in plant foods, found only one place in concentrated, and that's whole plant foods. Particularly the drier plant foods, such as whole grains and legumes. People are like, oh, I eat lots of fruits and vegetables, don't have to worry about fiber. But, you know, fruits and vegetables, fruits are about 90% water, vegetables are about 80% water. And so, yeah, they have fiber, but actually not as much as getting something like whole grains and beans, which is about 70% water. And you actually get more fiber per serving, particularly legumes, which are the fiber superstars. And no wonder every single blue zone in history, every longest lived population in the world centered their diets around some form of legume as their primary protein source. So that's what feeds our good gut bugs. Then what these good gut bugs do with the fiber is that they produce as a byproduct what are called postbiotics, like butyrate, propionate, and acetate, the short-chain fatty acids that are absorbed through the colon wall into our bloodstream, circulate throughout our body, even cross the blood-brain barrier into our brain, have effects on boosting our mental health, have effects on decreasing inflammation, boosting our immune function. And so we feed them, they feed us right back. So it's critically important to maintain good gut health. How do we do that? Fiber-rich foods.
It seems like every day we're learning more about our guts, about our brains, and about what really nurtures our cognitive capacity, our mental health, and our ability to sustain vibrant, long, and healthy lives. It turns out that our brains are impacted by a lot more than just the food on our plates. Dr. Dean Ornish summarizes the emerging field of lifestyle medicine with simple words: eat better, stress less, love more, and move more.
Yeah. So what does this actually mean? And how can you put it to work in your life?
I think people have heard these things before, that if you want to be healthy, you've got to eat right, you got to exercise, get enough sleep, reduce stress, and have good relationships with other people. And there's no reason to assume that the brain would have any different answer to that request. And indeed, those are the pillars of a brain healthy lifestyle approach. And they're profoundly, profoundly influential. As a matter of fact, the Lancet a very well-respected medical journal just published an indication that dementia risk could be cut in half if people were to adopt 14 different lifestyle measures, including various dietary changes, not smoking, avoiding head trauma by wearing a helmet, managing blood pressure, exercising, paying attention to the quality and quantity of sleep that an individual gets, various other things. But just again, the notion that we are the arbiters, we are the architects of our brain's destiny, I think does a very important thing. It hits the ball back across the net to our side of the court and asks us, okay, now what do we do? How are we going to return that serve? Because, on the other side, waiting by living your life come what may, waiting for a pharmaceutical fix is a strategy, but thus far there's nothing really there. So we've got to pay attention to these lifestyle issues. It's all there is.
We created an acronym that was easy for our patients to remember. After studying the brain, after being in the realm of epidemiology and preventive medicine, I did a dual neurology or preventive medicine residency. And, after noticing these factors, we thought it would be really cool to have an acronym so that we could say it within the 20 or 30 minutes that we have with our patients. And we came up with neuro. N stands for nutrition. E stands for exercise. U stands for unwind or stress management. R stands for restorative sleep. And O represents optimization of cognitive activity. And if I had to give you a very quick rundown of these factors, all of them have been, studied. There is a lot of scientific evidence supporting these factors. We know that, say, for example, as far as nutrition is concerned, if we eat a dietary pattern that is healthy, it can prevent Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia. One study showed that it prevents it up to 53%. We know that exercise grows the brain literally by size. We know that stress management, if it's not managed appropriately, it can shrink our brain. But that doesn't mean that we should stay away from all kinds of stressors. It's all about identifying good stresses and bad stresses and using the good stresses to increase neuroplasticity. Restorative sleep cleanses the brain. And O is optimization of cognitive activity. It's that social connectedness. It's the purpose that we create for ourselves that grows the brain. So those are some of the factors, and I just went over them really quickly.
How important is connection and love and the social aspect in mental health? It is so very important. So our Surgeon General has said that there is an epidemic of loneliness. And so even with the ways that we can communicate online and social media and things like that, there is still something very special about interpersonal and in-person connection. So, sometimes it's not possible, but there are quite a few people who are isolated, older parents, grandparents who live alone, away from their children or grandchildren, people who are isolated in nursing homes or living facilities, even thinking about children who are removed from their homes and in foster care and away from the people that are familiar to them. So we're social beings, and we need in-person communication, sometimes just even in-person touch. People respond, and that's a part of who we are and what makes us human. So when we don't have that, it can be a tremendous deficit for individuals and contribute to anxiety, depression in particular. Ways that people can connect with others on a deeper level is to find communities, right? If it's in your neighborhood, or it might be a community of faith, a religious group, or a social organization, if you have a certain hobby or craft that you do. I know of individuals who are older who go to the regular YMCA for exercise classes or for different other social connection classes. So finding ways to connect with people when you have things in common.
Human connection is critically important to brain health and to mental health too. Now, when you combine connection with exercise, or with sharing healthy food, or with a community of faith, or a yoga class, or some other form of stress reduction, you get kind of a twofer. You can be eating better and loving more, or exercising and loving more and stressing less all at the same time.
What's more, we are more likely to stick with a healthy habit when we have positive social motivation to do so. We're more likely to stick with a new routine when we have social accountability and peer support.
Yeah.
So lifestyle medicine really does work in synergy.
It's all connected. And we're also connected to what happens around us, including our environment and even the air that we breathe.
Over the last 2 years, we're actually seeing a lot of data coming in to show that things like air pollution can increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease, to the point where it was actually added to the list of risk factors during midlife.
Environmental factors are huge and may very well be playing a major role in the ever increasing prevalence of our most feared neurodegenerative conditions, but also mental health issues as well. And while there are a lot of issues out there, we know that, more and more our air is threatened by the presence of particulates. We call these PM, the ones that are studied the most, PM 2.5 or 2.5 microns in diameter, cross-sectional diameter. And these are particularly threatening because we breathe them in. They can get through the blood-brain barrier, they get through the lungs, and they are powerful amplifiers of, you guessed it, inflammation. We've seen lots of research that shows strong correlations between exposure to these PM 2.5s and risk for Alzheimer's disease. And how do those studies get performed? Well, one of the ways that these studies are carried out is to look at data that looks at how close does an individual live to a major highway. Highways are a great source of these particles from the car exhaust, but also, more importantly, from the tires. As your tires wear and lift up things from the asphalt, they're powerfully generating these particles that are invisible because they're so small. So having said that, these research studies show that there's a perfect relationship relating proximity to a major highway and Alzheimer's risk at population level. But as we move forward in time with climate change, I think our exposure to these PM 2.5s is just going to increase dramatically because of fires. So, this is something now that we're exposed to. But as we've seen in the past couple of years, smoke transcends borders. Smoke doesn't really respect borders. We saw a really horrendous event in New York City a couple of years ago from fires that were 1,000 miles away in northeastern Canada. So it's going to happen more and more. And while there might be no fire where you live or no fire within 500 miles, the world is getting warmer and areas are getting drier and therefore at higher risk for fire. And it's something we absolutely need to think about. And it's not just the fact that when we're outdoors, we're breathing the campfire. It's not campfire. It's buildings. It's material that's burning that is highly toxic. And what are these particles? They are small particles of whatever it is that's burning. So it's not like it's time to bust out the marshmallows because somebody's got a campfire going because the forest is burning. In Canada, it's buildings as well. It's all kinds of structures that we have to think about that are contributing to the real danger as it relates to what's in that smoke. And it comes inside too. It makes its way within our walls into our homes. And it's why we've got to pay attention to the threat posed by the poisoning of our atmosphere by this particulate matter, and therefore consider what can we do at home. And I think it's there that we now must consider purifying our indoor air by getting an air purifier and having one in the rooms, in each room in which we spend a lot of time, like the dining room, like the living room, and certainly the bedroom, getting an air purifier and being able to use an air purifier that at the same time it's purifying the air is able to give you a readout as to what is the quality of that air in terms of particulate matter that we've been discussing.
Air quality is really important. And while you can't control the air in the whole world, you spend a lot of your time indoors. And having a quality air purifier can make a huge difference, especially if you change the filters on schedule.
Yes. There's so much in our world that we can't change, but there's also a great deal in our lives that we can change. One of the external things that a lot of us struggle with is stress. And most of us can't do a heck of a lot about the stress of a cranky boss or a moody spouse or about how much traffic there is on the road, but we do have a remarkable ability to influence the levels of cortisol and adrenaline that our bodies secrete in response. And what scientists are discovering now is that how you relate to stress has a profound impact on your brain.
As far as stress is concerned, there have been studies that have looked at people who are chronic worriers or chronic stressors, and they have smaller gray matter volume. They have smaller hippocampi as well that helps us memorize things and hold information in our brain.
In the Philadelphia VA Medical Center where I work, we have something called the Brain Wellness Clinic, where we teach all the different things that we think are important for brain health, and stress management is an important one. The VA obviously has a lot of PTSD and anxiety and other symptoms like that. And we found through well-done trials that things like mindfulness meditation, guided imagery, other types of stress reduction can clearly help mental function and decrease mental symptoms like depression and anxiety and things like that.
I use some very basic techniques in terms of relaxation techniques. So things that I recommend for children and adolescents and adults to do may be deep breathing. Mm-hmm. So stopping and taking a deep breath in and releasing it. And doing that repetitively. Sometimes I will ask them to think of a place that is relaxing, going to the beach, going to the mountains, and then walk through an exercise in terms of visualization, closing your eyes and just imagining yourself, visioning yourself there, and trying to experience that environment with all your senses, hearing birds flying by, or if you're at the beach, hearing water, or if you're at a lake, hearing the water, and just listening to birds singing, those sorts of, and actually nature sounds, particularly bird singing, is something that can be very relaxing. And then another one that I'll sometimes do with older children and adults are progressive muscle relaxation. So when people are anxious and tense, you might feel it in your muscles. So going through a series of exercise of contracting your muscle groups and relaxing, and contracting and relaxing, doing that with the arms and then maybe the gut and then the legs. And that can be even something that you do at night. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep, doing what we call progressive muscle relaxation can be really helpful.
It's extraordinary to consider that something as simple as breathing deeply or visualizing a peaceful place can reshape your brain, can calm your mind, and that this could actually influence the health of your brain. Stress is inevitable, but the tools we use to manage it can make a massive difference.
So we've been looking at pillars of lifestyle medicine, and we've touched on eating better, stressing less, and connecting deeply. It turns out there's another pillar that is profoundly important to brain health: moving more.
Human beings were made to move. The kind of anatomy that we have, this axial body musculoskeletal system, is meant to move and to run and to essentially explore. But unfortunately, even though we have a Paleolithic body, we're living a life that is completely opposite for what we were designed for. And a lot of our ailments and the conditions that we're experiencing is because of our environment not really fitting our biology anymore. Our body was meant to move. When we move, magical things happen. We have more blood flow to our organs when we move. We have the release of specific types of chemicals, neurochemicals, growth hormones that build our muscle, but more importantly, it builds our brain. And it heightens our senses. It heightens our sense of hearing. It heightens our vision. It even heightens our taste. There's some research that shows that when people move, they can taste better and they can feel better, as far as touch is concerned. And this sedentary lifestyle is essentially disconnecting us not only from ourselves, from each other, but from the environment as well. And you see the opposite of this impact when you see people who are in a regimented exercise program. And research studies have shown that when people engage with activities such as hiking or running or biking or just simply walking for 20 minutes a day, there are hormones such as the brain-derived neurotrophic factor that just skyrockets. It goes from baseline, skyrockets, and then it kind of plateaus and stays there. And what BDNF does is magical. You see, the brain cell can make as little as 2 or 3 connections with each other. That's how they communicate. Or it can make as many as 30,000 connections. And now we know that the Purkinje cells in our cerebellum can make as up to 50,000 connections. That's insane. I mean, I can't even picture 50,000 little lines between neurons, but that's how it is. And when you look at these arborizations, it typically looks like the roots of a huge tree under the ground, where it just kind of communicates with each and every other plant around it and with itself. And exercise does that. Exercise grows those connections. What does that mean? So yes, greater connection, but what does that mean? That means a better you. That means a more aware you. That means a more sharper you. That means we can think better. We can remember better. We can communicate better. We can come up with better ideas and solutions. And I know this sounds bombastic, but when we exercise, we become better human beings. And I think at the end of the day, that's all we want. We want better versions of ourselves, don't we? The numbers are incredible and they're so empowering. There are many different studies, but we, know from putting them together, and there have been some meta-analyses, which is a type of exercise, which is a type of research that actually looks at the results of multiple different studies and compound them together. We know that when people engage in a combination of both aerobic and resistance training exercises, that they can lower the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease by 40%. There was a time when nobody really talked about building muscle, but we now know that when you build muscles, especially your largest muscles, which are your legs, 60% of your body mass is below your belly button. If you build your legs, you literally grow the parts of the brain that are responsible for consolidation of memory, the hippocampus.
Regular physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients that help keep neurons healthy and strong. And the benefits go beyond biology. Exercise has been shown to reduce stress, boost sleep quality, and even improve mood.
We tend to kind of compartmentalize our brain along the lines of medical specialties. Most of us might not think that a psychiatrist, a neurologist, a personal trainer, a chef, and a meditation instructor would have a whole lot to do with each other. But their skill sets all have a profound impact on your cognitive and mental health.
Yes, and mental health is another hugely important piece of the puzzle. So let's take a look now at the connection between your brain and the way that you feel.
We'd like to compartmentalize all of the various types of maladies of the brain. We've talked about Alzheimer's and Parkinson's as neurodegenerative conditions, and certainly there are others. But the other big category is, of course, the mental health disorders, and mechanistically they actually share quite a bit. There's a lot going on in the mental health disorders that is very much parallels what's going on in the brain in the degenerative conditions. And I think fundamentally, one of the players mechanistically that is seemingly so involved is something called inflammation. Inflammation is central to what goes on in the Parkinson's brain, in the Alzheimer's brain. It is the very immune cells that are the creators of these inflammatory chemicals that go on to damage the brain further, that compromise the energy production, that go on and compromise brain metabolism via inflammation, so powerfully threatening to the function of the energy producers within the cells called mitochondria. The same mechanism is at play, for example, in depression. So as it turns out, inflammation is a central mechanism involved in depression. Markers of inflammation in the blood correlate quite well with severity of depression, even risk for depression. We know that metabolic issues like type 2 diabetes and obesity correlate in a very straightforward way. What are those things involved in? Well, those are metabolic issues that threaten the function of immune cells and leads to the increased production of inflammatory chemicals in the body. We know that the SSRI drugs, for example, originally the Prozacs, Paxils, etc., that these drugs also function in addition to allowing perhaps more serotonin to be available in the brain. But actually, these are anti-inflammatories. We know that sick behavior is seen in depression, but it's also seen when we have an infection, and inflammation is increased in the human body. So, there are a lot of mechanisms. And I think as it relates to neurochemistry, one area that's getting a lot of attention is what does inflammation do in the brain to the neurotransmitters, which are clearly the central focus of pharmacological intervention as it relates to things, for example, like depression. And it turns out, not to be too technical, but probably I'm being too technical, too bad, and that is that inflammatory chemicals in the body inhibit the way that tryptophan, one of the amino acids, is processed to form the good chemical, if you will, serotonin, the chemical that calms us down and helps us feel good about things. The production of this serotonin from tryptophan is inhibited when there are higher levels of inflammatory chemicals that influence something called the kynurenic acid pathway. That'll be on the quiz. Suffice it to say that, let me back up, that inflammation threatens the availability of serotonin in the brain, and that may be one powerful mechanism whereby the metabolic issues like high blood sugar, diabetes, and overweight and obesity are related powerfully to risk for depression, for example.
Most people do not realize that your feel-good neurotransmitter, serotonin, is actually made, a significant portion, up to 90%, is made in the gut. So if the gut is producing this feel-good neurotransmitter, you want to keep the gut as healthy as possible with certain foods that are going to protect it.
Everything's connected in the body. And when you step back and you see the pervasive problem we have with mental health in our society, the amount of depression and what that leads to, everything from decreased productivity to hospitalization, suicides, etc. Where is it coming from? Well, a lot of it seems to be tied up with, again, the food that we're eating determines the microbes in our gut, and if the byproducts that the microbes are producing are ones that are deficient in dopamine and oxytocin and norepinephrine and serotonin, then that's going to affect the level of those chemicals in the brain. And so that fast food diet that people are eating are probably contributing to the depression we're seeing, including in children. And I've heard so many times over the years that my patients who I've helped transition their diet to one of whole plant foods for medical reason, blood pressure, diabetes, whatever. As the months go on, by the way, doc, since I changed my diet, I feel better. I'm happier. The life looks better to me. And this is not a placebo effect. It's a very powerful demonstration of how connected we are and how the food affects the microbiome and the microbiome affects our brain functioning. So everything is connected. And again, those whole plant foods hold so much nourishment on every level for us, not just our body, but also our mental function and our happiness.
We keep learning more about the powerful links between food and mental health. One study called Let Us Be Happy found that eating more fruits and vegetables was linked to reduced depression and greater psychological well-being. It's not just mood though. Emerging research suggests that the foods we eat could even shape our personality traits.
This is fascinating. We often think of personality as something kind of fixed, whether you're introverted or extroverted, agreeable or not. But science is showing that personality can actually change, and diet can play a big role. The gut-brain axis, for example, connects the health of your digestive system to your mood and your behavior. As we'll explore more in episode 3, a healthy gut microbiome can improve emotional stability and lower anxiety. But unhealthy diets that are high in sugar and unhealthy fats can disrupt the microbiome and can contribute to irritability and to neuroticism.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Diet also influences neuroplasticity, or the brain's ability to adapt and grow. Nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants like vitamin C and carotenoids found in colorful fruits and vegetables support adaptability and resilience. Poor diet, on the other hand, can increase blood sugar dysregulation and inflammation, which have been linked to traits like impulsivity and neuroticism. So, in a sense, the meals you choose aren't just feeding your body, they could be shaping who you are.
This is true, and for a lot of folks, it's also urgent. Unfortunately, mental health challenges are becoming increasingly common. Harvard Medical School researchers predict that half the world's population will experience a mental health disorder in their lifetimes.
One of the factors that could be driving a surge in mental health conditions in just about every country on Earth is the spread of ultra-processed foods.
Ultra-processed foods are basically industrialized, manufactured products with refined sugars, high refined sugars, unhealthy fats, additives, preservatives, and low nutritional value. Our body doesn't actually recognize what to do with them. So what I end up seeing happen is individuals who have been on these diets for a long time, their cells are speaking out to them and they're angry. Whether that symptom is a mood disorder, whether that symptom is energy production, the cells are starving for nutrients.
Stay away. Right. Ultra-processed food's not good for the body, not good for the brain. Associated with probably every disease you could possibly think of, constituting about 60% of daily caloric intake in the United States, probably the highest ultra-processed food intake in the world in terms of percent of calories. And boy, are we feeling the effects. And so, yeah, in fact, one of the characteristics of ultra-processed foods are these food additives, which are safe until they're not. Right? But the problem is they're out in the food supply for decades, often like aspartame, before we're like, oh, maybe it causes cancer. Okay, well, you could have told us this in 1981 when it was approved, you know. And so I think a kind of guilty until proven innocent when it comes to food additives, like some of these emulsifiers like polysorbate 80, that used to emulsify food can emulsify our gut mucus and cause problems with our microbiome. Artificial sweeteners, like sucralose, can muck with our microbiome. You know, the sucralose industry likes to say, oh, we're so safe because we're not absorbed into the bloodstream. Yeah, well, what does that mean? It ends up in the colon and can muck with our good gut bugs and cause metabolic problems. And so it's like, you know, but we don't find these things out until later. And so in general, we should, try to stick with whole foods if we possibly can.
So when we're looking at ultra-processed foods, we're looking at the increased risk of inflammation because these foods are known to cause inflammation in the body. And inflammation is a key factor in contributing to mental health disorders, including depression. Ultra-processed foods also affect the gut microbiome, creating something that we know as gut dysbiosis. So gut dysbiosis is an imbalance between your good gut bacteria and your bad gut bacteria. So when you create gut dysbiosis, The gut can influence every single cell in your body to create disease. So whether that is creating metabolic diseases like cancer and obesity, to cardiovascular diseases like high blood pressure and high cholesterol, to cognitive issues like anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, to autoimmune issues. Basically, the gut microbiome is your key in healing from any of these diseases. There are very little nutrients in ultra-processed foods. So we are going to have those nutrient deficiencies of those omega-3s, those B vitamins, those antioxidants, vitamin D. All of these things are key for brain health.
Most of us know, at least in general, that ultra-processed foods don't serve our best health, but few of us realize the extent of the damage they can do.
Part of the trouble with ultra-processed foods is that, to put it really simply, when you fill up on refined stuff, you have less room for nourishing stuff. Let's take a deeper look at how this works and at what dietary patterns are worst and best for your brain.
We know that when people adhere to, if I had to kind of draw a picture of it, it would be a predominantly standard American or a standard Western diet, which is usually very high in processed foods, in refined carbohydrates or sugars, in unhealthy fats such as trans fatty acids or saturated fats, in salt, and it's low in fiber, low in polyphenols, low in anti-inflammatories and antioxidants. Those are the kind of dietary patterns that really harm our brain. So I would say anything that kind of deviates from the Mind diet or the Mediterranean diet or a whole food plant-based or a plant predominant diet seems to cause a lot of problems for the brain. How? Multiple different ways. We've identified 4 different pathways primarily. So it is essentially glucose dysregulation, which essentially means that the metabolism of carbohydrates in our body is affected significantly by an unhealthy dietary pattern. Lipid dysregulation, which essentially means that consuming too much saturated fats or trans fatty acids can harm our blood vessels and can harm the production of specific chemicals that are really necessary for better brain function. Inflammation. I mean, that's something that is caused by unhealthy dietary patterns, and oxidation. Oxidation is caused mostly because of the lack of anti-inflammatory and antioxidants in our diet, and also consumption of poor fat or, low quality foods that are oxidized and cause damage to the arteries and to the neurons in our brain. I threw out a lot of, super scientific terminologies there, but generally speaking, if somebody really wants to take care of their brain health, then consumption of foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes as a source of fiber and plant-based proteins, nuts and seeds, which are high in healthy fats, consumption of water, and minimizing sugar, salt, and saturated fatty acids is at the core of a healthy dietary pattern. If you come down to the details of the different types of food that are healthy for the brain, even though I don't believe in superfoods per se, but there are foods that just stand out. And even in specific factor analyses of studies, which kind of shows, what foods are on the higher end of anti-inflammatories and antioxidants and provide the right kind of energy and the right kind of calories. Things like, green leafy vegetables just stand out. There was one study that showed that when people consume only 1 serving of green leafy vegetables, which is about 1.2 cups per day, when they did neuropsychological testing and imaging on them, they had brains that functioned at a level of 11 years younger. So people who consumed greens on a daily basis had brains of someone equivalent of 11 years younger. And their neuropsychological testing scores were incredibly high as well. That's phenomenal. And that's one of the things that we use in our communities for people who are just beginning to try to eat healthy. Instead of changing everything, we say, instead of removing everything, why don't you just add a cup of greens to your salad or your soup or your sandwich? And then other foods like blueberries stand out. They're packed with polyphenols and compounds that fight against inflammation and oxidation. Then we have foods that are high in fiber, such as whole grains and, unrefined cereals like oatmeal, like barley, like whole wheat, bread. Those are amazing sources of complex carbohydrates and energy, as well as fiber. The one thing that we're all deficient in is fiber. And then the rest of it is essentially consumption of, foods that are high in protein but low in saturated fats. So neglecting red meat, which comes with a lot of saturated fats, and getting your protein from beans, from soy products such as tofu and tempeh, and healthy fats such as, seeds and nuts that are high in polyunsaturated fatty acids and low in saturated fatty acids. So a combination of these foods essentially are up there on the top for brain health.
So our brains seem to do best when we eat less ultra-processed foods, less saturated fat, and more whole plant foods, especially legumes, greens, and fiber. What are some of the other key, most powerful nutritional factors?
There are a number of key factors I want you to think of, ingredients or compounds to help with brain health. Number one would be antioxidants. Key factors there are things like vitamin E, vitamin C, and polyphenols, which when I'm testing individuals on their blood levels for these, they are quite deficient in them based off of what their diet is. So vitamin E can be found in nuts and seeds, for example, almonds and sunflower seeds. Avocados and spinach are a great source of vitamin E. Vitamin C is really found in a lot of citrus fruits, so strawberries, bell peppers, and also leafy greens. And then polyphenols, this is where we want to eat the color of the rainbow. Berries, blueberries, blackberries, every color has some certain ingredient in it that can have this antioxidant effect. So that's number one. Antioxidants is key. Number two would be B vitamins. So B vitamins are critical for energy production for the brain. They are critical for supporting homocysteine. High homocysteine levels are linked to cognitive decline, and they're important in the synthesis of B6 and B12. So we want to make sure we're getting enough B6, B12, and folate. B6 found in bananas, potatoes, chickpeas. B9, which is also known as folate, is your dark leafy greens, lentils. And then B12, from a plant-based diet, the best way to get it is really supplementation or in fortified foods with B12. So now we've got antioxidants key, B vitamins key, and all of this I test for.
From the different studies, we know that vitamins such as the B vitamins, the B complex vitamins, are incredibly important for a healthy brain and a healthy nervous system. Even though we live in the United States, which is a developed country, a large number of our populations are low in vitamin B12 and vitamin B6 and vitamin B1. These vitamins are not adequately consumed as food products, or we may actually have some other gut issues that may minimize or limit their absorption. So we're seeing that trend with hyperpalatable, hyper-processed foods not providing enough of these vitamins. So it's important for people to get tested at least once a year to find out their values and their levels and replace that with supplements if necessary.
Next is magnesium. Magnesium is critical because that is going to support nerve function. Magnesium helps reduce stress. Magnesium improves sleep quality and therefore is essential for cognitive function. It also plays a role in the axons, the nerve cells communicating with each other. So plant-based sources, easy to get. That would be your almonds, your cashews, pumpkin seeds, black beans, and dark leafy greens. And two more that I'm going to give you. One would be vitamin D, and vitamin D is actually a hormone, and it's a hormone that contributes to lowering inflammation in the body. Having adequate vitamin D levels, which you can get from mushrooms that have been exposed to sunlight, fortified plant milks, sunlight exposure, or vitamin D supplementation.
Vitamin D seems to be very important for brain health, even in southern sunny California, we have about 30 to 40% of our population who are vitamin D deficient. And that impacts our cognition and memory and focus and attention. And so if somebody needs it, you need to replace that.
The last one I want you to consider is omega-3s. So omega-3s are critical, especially the DHA component. This helps maintain the structure and function of the brain cell and the cell membrane, that outer lining. So plant-based sources that you can utilize for omega-3 fatty acids, flax seeds, chia seeds, walnut, and algae oil are some of my favorites.
I was just having a conversation with a friend who is an expert in the field of understanding the impact of omega-3 fatty acids on our brain health. And that is one specific food, or should I say an aspect of a food or a micronutrient that seems to be quite important. 57 to 60% of our brain is made of these omega-3 fatty acids, both a combination of EPA and DHA, mostly DHA, but EPA as well. And it is a type of fat that our brain cannot create on its own. The brain can create its own cholesterol. It doesn't need any saturated fats, but it needs omega-3 fatty acids on a regular basis. And so it is very important for us to consume enough of it. Omega-3 fatty acids plays an important role on mental health. There have been studies that show that when people are experiencing conditions like PTSD, for example, or after traumatic brain injury when they have some cognitive impairment, and even in ADHD, that's consumption of omega-3 fatty acids, either as food or as supplements, may ameliorate some of the symptoms.
Plant-based foods like flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, and hemp seeds are excellent sources of short-chain omega-3 fatty acids called alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. Grinding up flax or chia seeds, perhaps in a coffee grinder, and sprinkling a tablespoon per day on top of your food can truly be a wonderful habit. It gives you not just ALA, but also protein, fiber, and phytochemicals, all of which are terrific. But there's still one potential gap, which is that your body has to convert ALA into DHA and EPA, which are the long chain forms of omega-3 fatty acids that are the most beneficial for brain health. This is where it can get a little tricky. A very small percentage of people convert ALA to DHA and EPA efficiently.
That's why it can be helpful to get your blood levels checked. Most people tend to have levels that are lower than optimal, and to be on the safe side, you really may want to take an algae-based DHA and EPA supplement, especially if you don't eat fish. Some people get EPA and DHA from fish, but fish are increasingly contaminated with heavy metals and microplastics, and the sheer volume of demand for fish is turning the fishing industry into something of an environmental disaster. So more and more people are getting their direct EPA and DHA from the same place the fish get it, which is algae. If you're interested in more on this topic, we'll come back to it in episode 4 when we discuss cardiovascular health, and in episode 7 when we talk about the science of nutrition.
Now let's turn our attention to another critical pillar of brain health that doesn't get nearly enough attention, and that's sleep. So what's really happening while we sleep, and why does it matter so much for our brains?
I think sleep is hugely underrated and critically important. We were talking about food. You can go a week without eating food, and so that's a nice fast, but you're not going to go a week without sleeping. You will probably perish. It's just behind breathing in terms of its importance, and yet so underestimated. We don't spend a third of our lives exercising or eating, but we should spend about a third of our lives, 8 out of every 24 hours, involved in this activity because it is so fundamental for general health and critically important for brain health. You miss a night's sleep and immediately you amp up the production of inflammatory chemicals within the human brain. Your decision-making is profoundly compromised, so it really is central to a brain health program.
When we look at the impact of sleep on the brain, it's profound. So 2 very important things happen when we sleep. The first thing that happens is our brain consolidates memory. We gather all of this information from our environment, whether it's a conversation with a friend or watching the news or reading an article. All of that stays on a plate. It's on a dish, like imagine a big dish with small little sticky notes with scribbles on them just there. It's like that at the end of the day. All of this information is your working memory, and it gets transferred and converted into long-term memory during the deeper stages of sleep. So it's as if somebody just opened up all those little sticky notes for you, typed it down into a beautiful Word document, saved it with a nice title, put it in the right folder and cabinet so that you can find it the next day. But if you don't get enough sleep, all of that just withers away and it goes away. So consolidation memory happens during the deeper stages of sleep. The second thing that happens is our brain cleanses itself. We have a beautiful, elegant janitorial system that is made from the microglia, which are specific cells. We call them the janitor cells, but there's so much more. And then the glymphatic system, which is an elegant system of lymph fluid that moves and reverberates based on the movements of our veins. So every time our heart pumps, these arteries in our brains, they reverberate and they push these lymph, almost like a sweep, to clean up all the byproducts from our brain. And they gather them, throw them in the veins, and it gets out of your body. However, this system does not get activated unless you're in the N3, the deeper stages of sleep, which basically means that for those of us who stay up late to watch that Netflix documentary, or who have a little bit of caffeine in our system, or who think that they can get away with only 4 hours of sleep, we don't go through those stages of sleep. And guess what happens? Accumulation of these byproducts occur, including beta amyloid protein that increases the risk for Alzheimer's disease and other disorders as well. So sleep is so important for brain health. And as far as sleep is concerned, one study showed that when people have untreated sleep apnea, which is a condition where you wake up multiple times, up to 100 times a day, even without opening your eyes, you wake up and you're not allowed to go to the deeper stages of sleep, that your risk of Alzheimer's disease can increase by 70%. And treating it completely reverses that relationship. And there are multiple other studies that show that when we say, for example, drink caffeine at night, that keeps us up and doesn't allow us to go through the stages of sleep where the brain is cleansed, that you start accumulating beta amyloid protein, which is the bad protein associated with Alzheimer's disease.
So sleep is really important. But a lot of us struggle to get enough of it. Sometimes that's because we're busy and we just don't spend enough time in a horizontal position. But a lot of us also have time that we're just lying there in bed, frustrated and awake. What causes these kinds of sleep issues? What makes our bodies lose the ability to do what they and our brains need them to do?
A lot of people do have difficulties with sleep. And, as they're not falling asleep, what happens? Well, they worry about that. Oh my gosh, I'm not sleeping. What does that do? It alerts them and activates them, and they have even more difficulty falling asleep. So there's so many things that we could talk about, but I think, these days, the big players seem to be, number one, timing of caffeine. I love my morning caffeine, but I think timing is really critical. I think the notion of a caffeine curfew is really a good idea. Caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours. And that means it takes 6 hours for the caffeine level in your bloodstream to go down by 50%. So if you have a couple of espressos at, let's say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 hours later, 10 o'clock at night, you still have a full one espresso on board in your bloodstream. And various factors affect people differently. Again, that's where the personalized approach comes into play. But again, people should look at what they're doing in the evening, what they're watching, what they're participating in, when they're exercising, when did they have caffeine last, recognize that there are an incredibly wide variety of things that have that are hidden sources of caffeine that you didn't know about. One that I should have known, but I didn't think about was kombucha. Kombucha is made from tea and can have caffeine in it. Who knew? Actually has a little bit of alcohol in it as well. Chocolate, that's for sure, can have a little caffeine in it as well. Even various medications that people may take may have a little caffeine in them as well. And people can be very sensitive. Evening activities are really very important. Especially these days, watching news just before you go to sleep at night is probably not going to pave the way for you to unwind and forget about what's going on in the world and go to sleep very easily. So, just another thing people need to think about. I think people should pay attention to the environment. It should be a little colder than perhaps you're used to, dark and quiet. And when I say quiet, it means that not only noise from the outside, but if you're sleeping with somebody, that individual may snore or may talk in his or her sleep or may move around and kick you in the middle of the night. Who knows? But one thing that is very handy is a white noise generator, which actually is found on many smartphones these days. I didn't know it was on the iPhone, but it is. But you can get a USB rechargeable smart white noise generator that's actually very handy. And truth be known, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I hear the white noise generator and I learned that, yes, I was snoring and my wife turned it on. That allowed her to get a good night's sleep. So I'm all in.
So there's a laundry list of sleep hygiene checklist that essentially addresses three main factors: your environment, which is your bed, your bedroom, your curtains, your pillow, your blanket, the temperature. And then it's your lifestyle factors, such as your food and exercise. And then your behavior. Behavior essentially meaning not associating bedtime with stress, because for a lot of us, the minute we head to our bedroom and the minute we put our head on our pillow, that's when we start thinking about all these things that have happened and we can't really shut down our brain. So, cognitive behavioral therapy for that, or not drinking caffeine in the afternoon, or making sure your room is dark and boring and it's not a theater with a TV in it, that it's really, really cool, sometimes below 70 degrees Fahrenheit, although men and women tend to differ on that subject. All of that is incredibly important. But we were having a conversation with a sleep specialist friend a couple of weeks ago, and he said, if people do one thing for their sleep, that actually helps a lot. And we said, what is that? And he said, waking up at the same time every single day. His theory was your body is going to get tired anyway, and you'll have to listen to it. Forcing yourself to go to sleep might be more difficult than waking up, because that's the beginning of the day and you look forward to something. If you wake up at the same time, what happens is you will get tired and you will fall asleep within that time. So don't worry about too many factors. If people need to do one thing, it's choose one time, wake up, and that's basically it. And then everything else will fall in its place. Beyond that, I think there's a lot of wonderful research that is going on to look at our circadian rhythm and the timing of our consumption of food. And that seems to be very, very intriguing. Essentially, our metabolism changes when we consume food not at the right time. So more than the type of food that we should consume to promote a healthy sleeping pattern, it's not eating after a certain time and kind of staying hungry. And so the rule is, generally speaking, to stop thinking about food or eating any snacks or food at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, to give your body some time to rest. Because even if you are, if your stomach is not grumbling after eating, the metabolism changes. The rev up of energy, the glucose metabolism, the fat metabolism can impact your sleep cycles. So trying to stay away from eating completely is important. And also, of course, minimizing alcohol. As much as people think that alcohol might induce sleep, that actually does the complete opposite. It might help people go to sleep, but it completely ruins the sleep cycle, where it doesn't allow us to go through the deeper stages of sleep where our memories are consolidated and the brain is cleansed.
Optimizing sleep is critical for brain health, and there are a lot of things that can help, including making sure that late in the day you're avoiding caffeine and excessive stress, food, and blue light. It also helps to have a safe, quiet, dark sleep environment and to maintain a regular sleep schedule. But are there any foods or nutrients that support good sleep, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Ocean, because there are. Foods like nuts, seeds, cherries, and whole grains are rich in dietary fiber, magnesium, and tryptophan, all of which may help elicit deep relaxation and better sleep. Some of these foods, like pistachios, cherries, and sunflower seeds, are also rich in melatonin, the hormone that helps to regulate sleep.
Taking supplemental melatonin at bedtime could be helpful too. A lot of people think that melatonin is habit forming, meaning if you take it regularly, your body will make less and less of it, and that this could ultimately make it bad for your health. But the research does not appear to back that up. In general, taking a small to medium dose of melatonin right at bedtime in concert with a consistent bedtime routine seems to lead for a lot of people to a deeper and more satisfying sleep experience. But of course, it's not right or helpful for everybody, and the best sleep strategy doesn't come from a pill, it comes from optimizing your lifestyle choices.
So how can you nurture healthy diet and lifestyle choices? It all starts with building healthy habits.
It takes a very long time for a habit to be built. It doesn't happen overnight. By definition, habit is something that we continuously do over and over and over again. And we start defining ourselves based on those actions. And just the way they are built, they are also amenable to change. They can be broken down too, and they can be replaced with better habits. This in itself is a huge conversation and a topic, but progress and changing one small thing at a time instead of taking on too many different things seems to be the best way to go about it. And there are specific keystone habits. One thing that comes easy, one thing that can be made personal, that could be the stepping stone to changing habits and patterns in other realms as well. So I would suggest identifying one thing at a time, working at it, making the smallest of changes and building on that as we move forward.
So here we are, full circle, seeing how the small habits we nurture every day can have a profound impact, not just on how we feel in the moment, but on the long-term health of our brains and our bodies. What's striking is how interconnected it all is. Our movement, our meals, our rest, even our connections with other people in our lives. Each of these choices has the power to shape our future. And the best part, I think, is that we hold the reins.
And isn't it empowering to know that brain health isn't something that inevitably declines with age? Instead, it's something we can influence and even improve. It's about making those consistent, intentional choices, whether it's adding more leafy greens to your plate, getting outside for a brisk walk, or simply prioritizing time to unwind. Prevention might not make headlines as often as the latest pharmaceutical breakthrough, but it is where the real magic happens.
Think about it like this. Every small choice you make today is a vote for the person you want to be tomorrow. And while the science can seem complicated, the message is remarkably simple. Taking agency means asking the right questions. Not just, what can fix this, but what can I do right now to love and care for my body and my brain?
So what does agency look like for you? Maybe it's committing to one keystone habit, something small but meaningful that you can build on. It could be as simple as starting each day with just 5 minutes of movement, or ensuring your next meal includes a vibrant, nutrient-dense vegetable. Each of these actions adds up to a stronger, healthier you.
And remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. So don't make the perfect the enemy of the good. Every step you take and every bite you take matters.
I think it's pretty clear from the evidence we have that if you take care of your brain, it'll take care of you. And I think people don't realize how much exercise and eating right and stress management and sleep and social connection can really protect your brain from what we normally think of as kind of normal brain aging. And certainly people who reach advanced ages that don't have any real memory or other cognitive impairment. And part of it may be genetic, but I think a lot of it is also lifestyle and how they treat their brain over the course of their life, with how they feed it, how they maintain the blood flow with exercise and other things. And I think that it's entirely possible that one day we will put everything together and memory impairment won't be a normal part of aging.
We now know that the brain is probably the only organ that gets better as we age. And there is a lot of evidence that shows that when you expose yourself to the right kind of lifestyle factors, whether it's diet, exercise, restorative sleep, optimization of cognitive activities, our brain cells are able to make more and more connections, whether we're 9-year-old or 99 years old. It just depends on how we take care of ourselves. Sure, there are some aspects of our cognition that may slow down a little bit. For example, it takes a little bit of time for us to remember, but the depth of our wisdom, the amount of our information, and the way the different parts of the brain interact with each other and come up with beautiful ideas, that continues to get better and better and better. And so dementia is not an imminent factor. It's just something that occurs as a result of us not highlighting or realizing the impact of our lifestyle factors on our brain.
What I scream from the rooftop is to take agency, is to be involved and make the choices preemptively to stay healthy. That this is something we can all do. And the notion of prevention as it relates to our health is something that is unfortunately not spoken about too much in the media. We hear about drugs being released day in and day out. Ask your doctor about this drug or that drug. No. Find out about why I have the problem in the first place. The chronic degenerative conditions that are plaguing the world, ranked as #1 cause of death by the World Health Organization, are by and large metabolic issues, and our lifestyle choices are fundamental to regain the function of our metabolism and therefore our immune systems.
It's true. Our lifestyle choices shape our brains, our metabolism, and our destiny.
We created this docuseries and this summit to put the power back in your hands. And we have so much more to learn together. Please be sure to join us for episode 3. Our topic will be a very important one: how you can improve your gut health and nurture a healthy life.
We'll see you there.
Let's do this. Thank you so much for sharing in that powerful episode. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what others are saying, post and engage in the comments section on our broadcast page. Make sure you refresh the comments using the button provided there so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. We heard from Sherry, who said, wow, wow, wow. I am so encouraged and uplifted by the information and the commitment of each of the contributors. Thank you. Hope springs eternal. Thank you, Sherry, and a huge shout out. Thank you for acknowledging it to all of the experts in this summit. The 45 people that we interviewed have spent collectively centuries of life and work and blood and sweat and tears and labor and creativity, gaining the wisdom that we are able to distill into these 8 episodes. What a blessing it is to have their work, and not only their work, but the hundreds of thousands of courageous researchers around the globe whose research, whose work they draw upon so that we can know so much about food and about how it impacts our bodies. Thank you for being here. Christine said, hi, Christine from BC, Canada. Hi, Christine. I lived in BC, Canada for the first 10 years of my life. Christine says, I'm 2 months into this learning and implementing so many new things. I feel so much better. Here to say thank you and learn more. Yes, Christine, thank you for being here and learning. We heard from Jennifer, who said, I'm confused by Dr. Perlmutter being here. Doesn't his insistence on gluten-free lifestyle seem at odds with most vegan diets? Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for your thoughtful question. I appreciate your curiosity and your desire to make sense of the voices that you're hearing in this summit, not all of whom are necessarily of exactly the same ideological perspective. At Food Revolution Network, we are about a big tent, one where people can come together in pursuit of a shared mission: healthy ethical, sustainable food for all. That means not all of our speakers agree on every single detail. Honestly, I don't even agree with myself all the time. But we're always learning. We're always evolving. And science is always learning too. That's kind of the point of it, right? It's curiosity. And so it's true. Dr. Perlmutter wrote Grain Brain, which helped bring a lot of attention to gluten and neurological health. Because of that, some people may assume he's not supportive of a plant-based diet. But the reality is that Dr. Perlmutter is a big proponent of a whole foods, plant-rich lifestyle. His work on the gut-brain connection has also made him a huge advocate for fiber. And as we know, fiber is abundant in whole plant foods, and it's not found in any animal products. It's also not found in bottled oils or added sugars. So there's absolutely some nuanced differences, like Dr. Perlmutter's recommendation for a lot of people to avoid gluten, but there's a great deal of alignment amongst our speakers. For example, most of our speakers would say that whole grains are good for you, but all of them would agree that most of the grains in the modern diet are coming from refined grains, especially white flour, which is not linked to positive outcomes for human health. We are glad to bring in a range of voices to help bridge conversations across different communities. And we're glad to welcome a range of eaters here too, by the way. You don't have to sign a purity pact or open your kitchen to food inspections to be a part of this movement. The point is progress, not perfection, and that we're lifting up solutions and looking for points of clarity that can help people and help our world. So thank you again for engaging with this so thoughtfully, and thanks to all of our speakers for bringing their wisdom and insight into this shared mission, which is so critically important. Arlene said, I'm very confused about all the references to eating soy. I'm a chronic cancer survivor. I was told not to eat any soy products. Please address this. Well, hi, Arlene. Thank you for your thoughtful question and for being here with us. I can totally understand why you'd be cautious, especially as a chronic cancer survivor. You've likely been through a lot. And it makes perfect sense to want to do everything you can to support your health and to avoid recurrence. The idea that soy should be avoided, particularly by people with a history of cancer, has been widely circulated. But the most up-to-date and rigorous science tells a different story for most people. Now, to be clear, I don't know the specifics of your story and your context, but I am talking broadly here. Numerous bunch of peer-reviewed studies have shown us that consuming moderate amounts of whole soy foods like tofu, tempeh, edamame, soy milk, or actual soybeans is not only safe, but is actually beneficial to reducing the risk of developing certain cancers, including especially breast and prostate cancer. It can also improve long-term survival among many cancer survivors. Soy contains phytoestrogens called isoflavones, which are sometimes misunderstood. Unlike the estrogen that's produced by our bodies, these compounds actually bind to estrogen receptors in a way that can block or weaken the effects of stronger estrogen. So instead of fueling hormone-related cancers, they can actually help protect against them. Of course, we're talking here about whole or minimally processed soy foods, not ultra-processed soy protein isolates that are often added to junk food. But for most people, including cancer survivors, whole soy foods can be a nourishing and health-promoting part of the diet, and they're linked to positive health outcomes and survival rates. Again, though, your body and your history are unique, and your comfort and your confidence in your food choices matter. So please take what resonates and talk with your healthcare team if you're unsure, and know that whatever steps you take to align your diet with your values and your health goals, we're cheering you on. You're not alone in this, and I am so glad you're here. Isabel said, experts often recommend soy-based foods such as tofu and tempeh, but aren't these also processed? They're not whole foods. The same goes for so-called plant-based milks like soy milk, almond milk, and oat milk. How do we reconcile the whole foods diet with these transformed soy-based or other plant-based food products? Well, Isabel, thank you for asking. Processing a food is kind of on a spectrum, right? There's lightly processed foods, things you could take the whole food and process it in your kitchen with cooking and a blender, maybe some fermentation, stuff like that. And then there's things that are more processed, and then there's ultra processed, things that you could only make in a factory with chemistry labs. And so these things are all a spectrum, if you will, and there's a huge difference between lightly processed and ultra processed. Now, when we talk about something like tempeh, that's taking whole soybeans and fermenting them. And it's super healthy. It actually makes the soy even more bioavailable and nutritious and better for your microbiome. The fermentation process is superb. Tofu is minimally processed. I've made it in my own home. You can literally take soybeans and make them into soy milk with nothing but soybeans and water. And then you can curdle that and press it and you get tofu. Then there are maybe factories that are more industrialized with tofu, but the principles are pretty straightforward. Soy milks can be a range of things. There are, at their best, they're just soybeans and water. At their worst, there's a bunch of emulsifiers and flavorings and sugar added, and that may not be such a great boon to your health. Almond milks and oat milks are even more problematic, potentially. Almonds can be great, but when you take almonds and put them in almond milk in a store, they're usually very low in almonds because almonds are costly. And so companies will put a handful of almonds in a big jug of almond milk along with something to make it white, something else to make it thick, and something else to make it sweet. And you actually don't have a lot of almond going on. So, read those ingredients, make it your own if you can. Look for simple, look for unsweetened, and ideally without thickening agents so you know you're actually getting real food. Those are some thoughts. Ultimately, we don't make the perfect the enemy of the good here. Some processing is going to help food to be more palatable, delicious, enjoyable, and possibly even in some cases nutritious. But you don't want to go too far and make it a chemistry project because generally that's not something your body will recognize as food. We heard from Lynn, who said, I turned 80 this year, and being plant-based and using information from this resource has given me hope and kept me enjoying my life. Thank you for offering the information and hope we find in these programs. Lynn, congratulations on turning 80. Here's to many more healthy, vibrant years to come for you and for your loved ones. Helene said, thanks for the info about plastics and tea bags. What about gel caps? Well, Helene, thank you for asking. So gel capsules used for supplements are typically made from gelatin, which is animal derived, although many of them are made from plant-based materials like hydroxypropyl methylcellulose. These materials are not considered plastics. Current evidence does not show that they break down into microplastics in the body. That said, you can opt for supplements labeled as plant-based or vegan, and you can choose powders or liquid forms when available if you want to avoid capsule materials altogether. But there's no evidence I'm aware of that plant-based or vegan capsule material is particularly problematic per se. Jeanette said, Ocean, earlier this year I watched your 2025 summit and was very motivated to make further changes. I've been searching for more natural ways to heal my body since I've struggled with a nervous system disorder all my life, and most recently with diabetes. Since I made a decision to eat a plant-based diet, I'm no longer a serious diabetic, and my disorder in the brain has decreased its activity. I feel so much healthier and happier. I knew a healthier diet would lead to a healthier body, but I couldn't see through all the misinformation until I attended your summit. Thank you for helping me to see my new, happier, and healthier journey. Jeanette, how wonderful that you are on this path. Congratulations on making these changes and getting such tremendous results. We're sending you so much love, and we want to help you keep it going and make it more delicious. So we're going to gift you with a copy of our cookbook, Real Superfoods, Everyday Ingredients to Elevate Your Health. This is incredible recipes from Nicole and some information from me about real superfoods. We're talking not about fancy dancy Himalayan goji berries or Siberian ginseng. We're talking about superfoods that are super healthy and nutritious, and also super accessible, super affordable, and super delicious when you know what to do with them, which is why it's a cookbook. So our team will follow up with you and see about getting you a copy sent from the publisher, Hay House. Real Superfoods is available if you go to, realsuperfoods.com. I'm just actually checking. or realsuperfoods.foodrevolution.org, I guess, is our website page for it. Again, that's realsuperfoods.foodrevolution.org, or just look it up online. It's an amazing resource, and I'm proud to be able to share it with everybody, and proud to be able to give you a copy, Jeanette. I hope it will support you for many healthy years of nourishing eating in the times to come. Congratulations. Our team will be in touch with you. I want to make sure everybody knows about the expert interviews. In addition to the docuseries episodes each day of this summit, we also have 3 more featured expert interviews. Today, you can hear Dr. Aisha Sherzai on the Alzheimer's solution, how to prevent and reverse the symptoms of cognitive decline at any age. Dr. Dean Ornish on a unifying theory of lifestyle medicine. And Dr. David Perlmutter on Brainmaker, the power of gut microbes to heal and protect your brain for life. These are 3 incredible speakers. You saw them all in today's episode, and you can go deeper with each of them if you want to by checking out their featured expert interviews today. And of course, Empowerment Package owners have access to all the expert interviews, all 45 of them, for life. Donna said, good morning from New Mexico, school social worker here. I work hard to share what I'm learning here with my high school students. I model by bringing healthy meals, smoothies, and knowledge every chance I get. Thank you for all you do. Donna, thank you for all you do. Bless you in spreading the word. And we want to make it easier for you as a school social worker to spread the word with your students. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. Now you will have all of the episodes and all of the transcripts for life, and of course all the expert interviews. If you ever want to share some with students, you can maybe even create a little viewing party for episodes, or you'll just know more so you can bring the information forward in the right way at the right time to the right people. We bless you and send lots of love to you and to your school and your students. Thank you for touching the future. Congratulations. Our team will be in touch with you. And congratulations also to all of our newest Empowerment Package owners, including Sue from Great Britain, Susan from Virginia, Richard from New York, Veronica from South Africa, Janet from Massachusetts, Mike from Oklahoma, Rita from Texas, Donna from Australia, Claudia from Virginia, Teresa from Georgia, Ong from Singapore, Karen from Canada, Dorota from Poland. Thank you all so much, everybody who is investing in your health and in our mission by choosing to get an empowerment package. We could not do this work without you. And hopefully your choice will empower you for many vibrant, healthy years to come. Now, there's another resource I want to make sure you all know about. FRN, Food Revolution Network, hosts a plant-based coaching certificate in which we train hundreds of new coaches every year to help people implement, sustain, and optimize a healthy diet and lifestyle. One of our graduates is Dr. Heather Gosnell from Phoenix, Arizona. Starting in 2017, Dr. Gosnell learned about the power of diet and lifestyle and began implementing what she was learning. As a practicing pediatrician, Dr. Heather joined the certificate program so she could bring lifestyle into her practice and help people address the root causes of health issues. This is her story.
Keep going. You know, things can be hard when you're starting a business, but that's okay. Not supposed to be easy. Just keep going. You're on the right track. Stick with it. You got this. Hi, I'm Heather. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and I am a pediatrician. I would say when I was younger, my purpose in life was to become a doctor and educate people in pediatrics. And I became plant-based myself in 2017 and completely changed my life. I have a genetic predisposition to early onset dementia. And when I learned that lifestyle has a big play there, that I can really change the trajectory of my life, I was really relieved because it's always been a worry of mine since I found out I had this gene defect. And I thought, well, this is my lot in life and genetics are genetics, there's nothing I can do. And when I found out that plant-based eating can help reduce my risk of getting dementia, it gave me a sense of freedom. You know, I've gained so much knowledge and educated myself on plant-based lifestyle and how impactful it can be for people and how so many people don't know about it. And so I just had something within me that I wanted to just let everyone know and spread the word, but I just felt stuck and didn't know what to do. And so when I got that email from Ocean Robbins and about the new PBCC program that was going to be starting in January, and a light bulb went off in me, and I felt like that was exactly what I was meant to do in my life. And I was so excited. For a long time, I wanted to do more in the plant-based realm and really didn't know what to do or what I wanted to do, how to do it. When I got that email, it all just clicked for me, and I felt like this is it. And that's when I started moving forward. And I really didn't know much about coaching. I had never been coached, and so I learned what that was throughout the program. And so I learned what it is to coach, how to be a coach, how to be effective. And so that was great from the program. And so now I put that into action, and I started a coaching business. So I've had one client so far who is a friend of mine. She's also a mother of my patients, and we've been working together. She's been amazing. She's met all of her initial goals. We've got one more goal to work on, and it's been really rewarding. So I'm actively starting to do some more outreach on social media, and I'm setting up some Zoom Q&A sessions this summer to serve others and get some clients that way. So that's in the works, and I've been coaching a friend of mine for the last several months, and that's been going great as well. When I first went through the program, I was full-time, and I was a full-time pediatrician until 6 months ago, as I thought I could coach on the side of still being full-time, and I'm not sure really why I thought I could do that all, but quickly realized, well, it's going to be a lot longer being full-time to get a business running. So I went part-time this year to just focus on me, but also to have time to dedicate to my coaching business. In my pediatrics practice, I see a lot of families and children, and that's my audience right now, to spread the word about a healthy lifestyle. There's this one patient, is a teenage boy, and he just a little bit overweight, and he had high cholesterol and elevated hemoglobin A1C. We talked a lot about the foods that can help him, the lifestyle that can help him, and I saw him back a few months later, and he put it all into action. He lost weight, his cholesterol normalized, his A1C normalized, and it was really, really rewarding for me. So for people who are thinking about transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle, the thing I like to have people focus on is adding foods to your diet. Think about adding fruits, adding vegetables, adding beans, adding nuts, adding whole grains. So thinking about what we can add to the diet versus what we're taking out. Because if we just kind of focus on, well, I can't eat this and I can't eat that, it just kind of puts a negative feel to it. So I like to have people focus on what we can eat, what we're adding, all to benefit our health.
Thank you so much to Dr. Gosnell for that moving story. If you are interested in becoming a plant-based coach, you can find out more about the program at certificate.foodrevolution.org. It's a 6-month journey. It is profound and life-changing, and the next cohort launches in January. Again, find out more at certificate.foodrevolution.org. William said, with the importance of improving sleep, do your experts have an opinion on the growing use of gummies with THC and CBD for sleep? Are those nighttime gummies increasing the risk for dementia, or do they have any positive role? Well, William, thank you for bringing this up. It is a timely and important question because more and more people are using cannabis-based gummies now that they're increasingly legal in more and more states and countries around the world. A lot of the research indicates that CBD may offer real benefits when it comes to sleep and possibly other health benefits as well, including bringing down chronic inflammation in the human body. We have an article on this that goes into more depth at foodrevolution.org if you type in CBD. CBD can help some people fall asleep more easily. It may even support more restorative rest, especially when anxiety or pain is part of the picture. For other people, they don't notice it very much. Now, people do notice THC, especially in higher doses. It can be helpful as a sleep aid in some cases. It certainly can help people fall asleep faster, sometimes stay asleep longer, but it's not without its drawbacks. One key concern is that THC can suppress REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, the phase of sleep that's especially important to support memory, learning, and emotional regulation. And that's part of why some people report vivid dreams or even a REM rebound after they stop THC use. Many people do not have as many dreams, do not remember as many dreams when they are using THC. As far as long-term risks like dementia, the science is still developing. These haven't been used widely enough for long enough to know with certainty. There are some studies that have raised concerns about long-term heavy THC use, especially when people start young or use it in high doses. But there's not strong evidence at this time linking moderate or occasional use of THC or certainly of CBD at bedtime with increased dementia risk in older adults. That said, we support caution, especially with daily use and especially so with high THC products. Ultimately, we know sleep is essential to health and longevity. For some people, CBD and in some cases THC might be useful tools. But we always recommend starting with the fundamentals, which are sleep hygiene, stress reduction, healthy diet, movement, and circadian rhythm support. And if someone does choose to use gummies or other aids, it's good to work with a knowledgeable practitioner and to regularly reassess whether they're truly helping in the long term. Many sleep aids, potentially including THC, can become habit forming and even have the potential to become addictive. Now, one that we find pretty positive health research around is melatonin. Again, though, it can be mixed. The data is complex and multi-layered. I don't think we should be taking large amounts of melatonin, most of us, every night. But from time to time to help reset your clock when traveling, or maybe in other instances, there could be benefit. And again, we've got a whole article on this that goes into more of the nuances. If you go to foodrevolution.org and type in melatonin, you'll learn a lot more. Thank you again for your thoughtful question. You're clearly paying attention, and I appreciate that. Jerry said, I'm diagnosed with diabetes, and my husband has diabetes and neuropathy. He also has symptoms of hot flashes and eye issues. He takes meds, but I truly believe change can occur with diet and exercise. This summit is very encouraging. I'm determined to reverse diabetes in both our lives. Thank you for the summit. I believe it will be a life changer. Jerry, you're on the right track. Thank you for being here. You are right that diabetes can not only be prevented, but can also be reversed with healthier diet and lifestyle. Not all the time, but in most cases. And you can almost always get benefit, and sometimes change can happen really fast. If you want to go deeper on diabetes, I highly recommend you check out the Tackling Type 2 Masterclass that we created with dietitian Brenda Davis. It is about 90 minutes long. I host it with Brenda, and it is a game changer. And there's also a course on tackling type 2 that's introduced in the masterclass if you want to go deeper. Highly recommend it. Brenda is the top expert I know in helping people use a whole foods plant-based diet to prevent and reverse diabetes. If you go to type2.foodrevolution.org, you can enroll for free in the masterclass. Again, that's type2.foodrevolution.org. And I hope it's of benefit to you. And again, there's a course that follows from that if you want it, that really could make a big difference. Please stay in touch. I hope to hear from you again in future summits, hearing about how you and your husband are progressing. Joy said, can you build bone density in your 70s? Yes, Joy, you can build bone density in your 70s. It's a common myth that bone loss is inevitable with age, but the reality is it's normal, it's typical, but it doesn't have to be your fate. Your bones are living tissue, and they're constantly breaking down and rebuilding. with the right lifestyle choices, especially around diet and exercise, you can absolutely make them stronger even in your later years. There's some fascinating research showing that weight-bearing movement and resistance training can stimulate new bone formation, and certain nutrients, especially calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K2, and protein, great to get it from plants, can play a vital role in supporting that process. We'll go deeper into this in episode 7, including practical steps you can take to protect and even rebuild bone density as you age. The key thing to know is you're not powerless. Your body can still respond and it can still heal. So stay tuned and you're going to learn a lot more. And he said, you guys are the very best. How much calcium is recommended daily for a 72-year-old woman with osteoporosis? Well, thanks for asking, Annie. For a 72-year-old woman with osteoporosis, the official recommended daily calcium intake is about 1,200 milligrams in the United States. That's how the recommendations are playing out. Other countries have other numbers. This should ideally come from a mix of plant-based food sources and supplements if needed, modest amounts of supplements. You don't want to overblow it, along with adequate vitamin D to support absorption and potentially vitamin K2 to help that absorption get into your bones instead of into your arteries. I think it's probably advisable, especially if you are vegan, to take a small amount of calcium supplementation, but you want to take it ideally with food. And that gets me to our next question from Pat, who said, if you eat food with calcium, can you supplement at the same time? And I'll say here that calcium supplements can generally be taken with food, and doing so probably supports better absorption. It's best to avoid taking high-dose calcium alongside iron or zinc because they can actually compete for absorption. So ideally, you want to spread your calcium intake through the day using whole foods and potentially a low-dose supplement if needed. That can be more effective than taking a large amount all at once. Socorro asked, where do we get the recipes for the day? Thanks for asking, Socorro. So the recipes are on the broadcast page near the bottom of the page. And you just go ahead and scroll down the page and you should see the recipe icons. Every day of the summit, we've got 3 more. Speaking of which, today's recipes of the day, all from Nicole D'Andrea Russert, RDN, include savory breakfast polenta with mushrooms and arugula. This might not be your first thought when you think of everyday breakfast, but that might change when you try this dish. Creamy and rich polenta is generously covered with sautéed mushrooms that give lots of umami goodness. It's topped with fresh avocado and bright arugula and a touch of spicy jalapeno. Next, we've got the Instant Pot rosemary and garlic chickpeas. Buttery Instant Pot rosemary and garlic chickpeas come out perfectly tender every time. With savory garlic and herby rosemary added to the mix, you've got a delectable pot of nourishing chickpeas that are loaded with protein and irresistible and easy to make. One thing I love about Instant Pots. And then we've got blueberry chia oat crumble. This high fiber, high antioxidant treat is almost too good to be true, but it is good and it is true. The combination of sweetness and crunch and a burst of blueberry is enough that you could almost call it a dessert. But it could also be an afternoon snack or an energizing breakfast. Baking the berries makes them extra delicious and juicy. Grab some blueberries from your local farmers or from your local freezer and get baking. Hope you all are enjoying all these recipes. As we go along through the summit, you can keep making them if you want to. Now, I want to say that we're getting such an amazing response. Reading the comments is bringing me to tears. Tears have been flowing a lot more easily for me since June 11th when my dad transitioned. Just feels like I just feel the emotion of it all, the vulnerability of life and the preciousness of it so powerfully in my own heart. And I'm so moved by the community of support for this legacy, this mission, this message getting out. And thank you all for being a part of this journey. It means a lot to me. And it also means a lot to me to read your stories. So many people are telling us about how their lives have been changed by adopting the principles we're talking about in this summit. It's not just theory, folks. This is real. And it's real in your life. So we're now approaching the end of day 2 in this summit. To express your opinions on today's episode and the summit so far, and to find out what others are saying, post and engage in the comment section on our broadcast page. Make sure you refresh those comments using the button you see for them so you can see the latest ones. You can also join in the conversation on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Food Revolution Network or Instagram.com/Food Revolution Network. Come on back and join us tomorrow. We're going to go live at 7:45 a.m. Pacific, 10:45 a.m. Eastern Time, 2:45 p.m. GMT, and then we'll start rolling episode 3 at 11 Eastern Time. It will be Nurturing a Thriving Microbiome, the Hidden Key to Immunity, Mood, and Longevity. In the meanwhile, you can post your comments, you can share in the conversation on the broadcast page, you can check out the empowerment package and invest in your health for life and support our mission. You can check out the plant-based coaching certification at certificate.foodrevolution.org. You can enjoy our recipes of the day right on the broadcast page. And you can listen to the replay, which goes live as soon as we finish today's broadcast, or check out the expert interviews. So many amazing resources, all to help you in enjoying a beautiful, healthy, and thriving day. This is Ocean Robbins, signing off from day 2 in the Food Revolution Summit. And here's a peek at what's coming up tomorrow. Your health starts in the gut, where trillions of tiny microbes hold the key to digestion, immunity, even your mood. But what happens when your gut's ecosystem is thrown out of balance? The consequences can ripple through your entire body, impacting everything from energy to your risk of chronic illness.
If you wanted to start with a blank sheet and you wanted to design a diet which will give you terrible gut health, you would end up designing the standard American diet.
The gut, as you know, Ocean, is having a big moment. And part of that moment is people and the medical community realizing that gut health is essential for overall health.
Well, enter the probiotic industry, which in 2022 was worth about $60 billion a year.
There is no reason why anybody should be taking probiotics, because the research shows time after time that taking probiotics is not converting to any health benefits.
Fermented foods are rock stars when it comes to gut health. Not only do fermented foods significantly increase the diversity of your gut, they also lead to a reduction in inflammatory compounds in the body.
So instead of thinking about or investing money in probiotics and fecal microbial transplants, I wish people would focus on other evidence-based diet and lifestyle interventions that help to build a healthier gut microbiome. So a healthy, diverse plant-based diet, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds in abundance and in diversity.
In this episode, discover groundbreaking studies showing how diet, movement, and lifestyle changes can transform your gut microbiome and your life.
What if you could protect your gut with every meal?
Join us as we celebrate the hidden world within you and learn how to cultivate your gut health for a healthier, happier future. At Food Revolution Network, our mission is healthy, ethical, sustainable food for all. We want kids to learn about healthy food in school. We want doctors to learn how nutrition impacts health in medical school. We want the routine use of antibiotics banned from factory farms. We want a world where everyone, regardless of their ethnic or economic background, has knowledge of and access to healthy food for their family. We want a world in which heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, obesity, and diabetes are rare, and in which vibrant health is the norm. We're spreading the word, and we're standing for change. And with every empowerment package purchased, we make a donation to Trees for the Future, so they can plant another organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. Join this movement and stand with us for a real food revolution.